Continuing from the last chapter, Lin Dong encountered powerful figures from various dynasties on the ancient battlefield, notably from the Holy Light dynasty. However, Lin Dong didn't regard them as a threat. Darkness shrouded the land. The night on the ancient battlefield was particularly gloomy and oppressive. In the distant sky, a full moon hung high. The moon's color was a deep, dark red, as if layers upon layers of blood had condensed to form this hue, sending a chill down one's spine. Rays of dark red moonlight cascaded down from the sky, illuminating the desolate land. Low, guttural roars echoed across the earth, each roar filled with a wild, untamed fury. Night on the ancient battlefield was a time when humans dared not venture out. In a city at one of the gathering points, Lin Dong sat quietly in a stone chamber, cross-legged. The power of devouring quietly spread from him, and the primordial energy in the surrounding heaven and earth flowed continuously into his body. Moreover, as the primordial energy converged into Lin Dong's body, faint strands of red energy began to gather on the surface of his skin. These strands of red energy weren't particularly powerful, but they carried an astonishingly intense and fiery aura. This red energy was none other than the Qi of Nirvana. In some ways, compared to primordial energy, the Qi of Nirvana was far more complex and profound. This energy had the power to refine Yuan power and possessed many miraculous effects. However, precisely because of its strength, many powerful individuals who hadn't yet reached the Nirvana stage didn't dare to absorb it recklessly. Their bodies couldn't withstand a large influx of Nirvana Qi, so they could only refine and absorb it in small amounts. Most would extract and condense it into Nirvana pills to be used when attempting to break through to the Nirvana stage. But for Lin Dong, such concerns didn't pose any problem. With the devouring ancestral talisman protecting him, he dared to devour any kind of energy, even the Qi of Nirvana. A faint red glow flickered on the surface of Lin Dong's body, and in the silence a faint, sizzling sound could be heard. The Nirvana Qi coursed through Lin Dong's skin and muscles, and the searing energy it contained seemed to remodel him, causing his strength to grow rapidly. At this rate of growth, it wouldn't be long before Lin Dong reached the great completion of the creation stage. By then, he would be unmatched beneath the Nirvana stage. The surging primordial energy around Lin Dong finally began to subside after a long while. The red glow that flickered on his body gradually dimmed as he slowly opened his tightly shut eyes. In the darkness, two red beams of light shot out from Lin Dong's eyes, as if tearing through the night itself. Opening his eyes, Lin Dong exhaled a long breath of warm white air. Then, with a flip of his palm, 10 round, fiery red pills appeared in his hand. These were Nirvana pills, refined from the remaining Nirvana Qi in his body that he hadn't fully absorbed. If he were to take these out, it would surely cause a great deal of astonishment. After all, even someone as powerful as Mo Ling, who had reached the great completion of the creation stage, could only refine, at most, 3 Nirvana pills in an entire night. But now, Lin Dong had effortlessly condensed 10 pills in a single night from the residual Nirvana Qi in his body, a feat that could only be described as extraordinary. However, despite the speed that would leave others in awe, Lin Dong was not entirely satisfied. He shook his head slightly and murmured, "In this gathering point, I don't dare to fully unleash the power of the devouring ancestral talisman. Otherwise, how could I have gained so little?" Lin Dong's demand for Nirvana pills was greater than that of ordinary people. He not only needed a large supply of Nirvana pills for himself, but also needed enough to purify the blood spirit puppet. However, the amount he had stored was still far from sufficient for either task. The nights on the ancient battlefield are indeed terrifying, Lin Dong thought as he leaped off the stone bed. He gazed outside at the night sky, bathed in dark red moonlight, with a serious expression in his eyes. He could feel that under this moonlight, it was as if the primordial energy in the heavens and earth had solidified. Not only did it make movement sluggish, but it also slowed the flow of Yuan power within the body compared to during the day. This was Lin Dong's 3rd night on the ancient battlefield. Since arriving in this city at the gathering point, they had stayed here for 3 days. During this time, Lin Dong hadn't actively interacted with anyone. However, Mo Ling had done an excellent job of gathering intelligence, and they now had a good understanding of the city's general situation. The current rulers of this gathering point city were still the people from the Holy Light dynasty. Lin Dong had never heard of this dynasty before, but its strength was undoubtedly top tier. According to the intelligence they had gathered, the Holy Light dynasty had sent 20 people into the ancient battlefield, 7 of whom had reached the great completion of the creation stage. The strongest among them had even reached the peak of the creation stage, enough to command respect from everyone present. Such strength and lineup were enough to deter any other dynasty from challenging them, making the Holy Light dynasty the uncontested rulers of this gathering point. Anyone seeking refuge from the night in the city had to pay a daily toll of Nirvana pills to them, which was somewhat akin to paying a protection fee. Although the Holy Light dynasty's methods were somewhat overbearing, they had some tactics as well. Knowing that their numbers were insufficient to control the vast number of geniuses from various dynasties, they recruited those who were willing to curry favor with them. This only made others even more reluctant to oppose them. After all, no one was familiar with the ancient battlefield yet, and the knights here were enough to instill fear. Without the city's protection, one could easily become food for the demon beasts. Because of this, even though the Holy Light dynasty's people were quite arrogant and domineering in this gathering point, most people were resentful but did not dare to speak out. Lin Dong, on the other hand, merely observed with cold detachment. During these 3 days, they had clashed with the people from the Holy Light dynasty, but in the end, they chose to endure. Lin Dong understood that if he truly wanted to stand out on the ancient battlefield, he would have to leave the protection of the city and venture alone into this wild land to undergo the trials of nature. Staying here would only render him a useless existence within this space. Lin Dong had already made up his mind. As soon as he reached the great completion of the creation stage, he would leave here and train on his own. Although the risk would be significant, staying with Mo Ling and the others restricted him from using many of his techniques, which was quite frustrating. Of course, before leaving, there was one problem he had to solve. Lin Langtian. Lin Dong's expression grew dark. Ever since entering the ancient battlefield, Lin Langtian had become eerily quiet, as if he had forgotten the grudge between them. However, this behavior only deepened Lin Dong's killing intent, for he knew all too well Lin Langtian's cunning and nature. Such an enemy needed to be eliminated as quickly as possible. Once you reach the great completion of the creation stage, you should be able to activate the devouring ancestral talisman and condense the devouring membrane. At that point, the knights on the ancient battlefield will no longer suppress you. This ancient battlefield is exceedingly strange. Venturing into it and undergoing trials will be greatly beneficial to you. If you stay here, you'll be nothing but a useless fool for the rest of your life, Little Mink said, appearing on Lin Dong's shoulder as it gazed out at the faint red night sky with a smile. Lin Dong nodded slightly. He, too, was filled with immense curiosity about this space. Be cautious tonight. I sense that the fluctuations in the heavens and earth are much stronger than usual, and there are also many auras appearing around the city, Little Mink suddenly said, its gaze fixed on the distance. Hearing this, Lin Dong was momentarily stunned, and then his eyelids twitched suddenly, a look of intense shock appearing in his eyes. He glanced outside and then lowered his voice. Is the demon tide coming? The so-called demon tide was an extremely terrifying calamity in the ancient battlefield. At night, countless demon beasts would gather together, sweeping across the land like a swarm of locusts, leaving nothing in their wake. During his 3 days in the city, Lin Dong had only encountered some small-scale demon tides, which were easily repelled. But today, it seemed that this was no ordinary demon tide. Yes, it seems that way. Be careful. The demon beasts in this ancient battlefield are far more ferocious than those in the Great Yin dynasty. Even a powerful practitioner at the great completion of the creation stage would face certain death if caught in one, Little Mink warned. Lin Dong nodded, his expression growing serious. His gaze turned toward the city walls, where, in the distant darkness, faint crimson glows began to flicker ominously, sending chills down one's spine. Those crimson glows grew clearer by the moment, and the ground began to tremble slightly. The entire city seemed to shiver as if in fear. The people within the city were all seasoned warriors, so as soon as the ground began to quake, a piercing alarm sounded throughout the city. Instantly, powerful auras erupted, and figures leaped into the air, all converging on the city walls. When they looked out and saw the endless sea of demon beasts outside the city, many of their faces turned pale. As the city descended into chaos, Lin Dong exhaled deeply. He knew that the first major challenge he would face since entering the ancient battlefield had finally arrived. The ground trembled as ferocious, blood-curdling roars echoed across the land, causing the entire city to shake under the force of the sound waves. In the sky, the blood moon hung high, and its crimson light poured down, adding even more ferocity to the already terrifying demon tide. On the city walls, nearly everyone had rushed up to defend. As they looked out at the endless tide of demon beasts, their faces grew increasingly grim. However, fortunately, the people here were not incompetent. Though they were shaken by the sight, they did not panic. Lin Dong also leaped onto the section of the city wall closest to their stone house, his gaze fixed outside. His vision was filled with a sea of crimson that stretched to the horizon, all of it formed by countless pairs of blood-red eyes. A towering, ferocious aura surged skyward, making the blood moon appear even more crimson. It was unimaginable how many demon beasts had gathered outside the city. As Lin Dong stared at the demon tide, shocked, several figures approached from behind, slicing through the air. Mo Ling and the others quickly appeared beside him, but when they saw the scene outside the city, they couldn't help but gasp. This was also their first time witnessing such a terrifying demon tide. This is trouble. This demon tide is far more serious than the small ones from the past few days. If we're not careful, the city could fall, and everyone would perish, Mo Ling said gravely. Du Yun and Man Shan also nodded, a trace of fear in their eyes. If the city were to be breached, they would lose their last line of defense. Facing such a vast number of demon beasts, even a practitioner at the peak of the creation stage would be in extreme danger. Brother Lin Dong, what do you think we should do now? Mo Ling asked, looking to Lin Dong for guidance. For now, let's observe the situation. Although the demon tide is large, there are many powerful forces in this city. It's not impossible to hold out until dawn, Lin Dong said after a brief pause. All right, Mo Ling and the others nodded slightly at Lin Dong's words. Only Lin Langtian remained silent, his face cold, with a flicker of malice in his eyes, though he said nothing. Roar! Just as Lin Dong and the others finished speaking, earth-shattering roars erupted from the demon tide. The tide began to churn in certain areas, and Lin Dong's gaze turned to those spots, his expression growing more serious. He could feel extremely violent auras emanating from those areas, far stronger than those of ordinary demon beasts. By his estimation, these were likely beings that could rival a practitioner at the peak of the creation stage. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed, and with a flick of his sleeve, little Yin darted out from within his robe. In an instant, it transformed into its battle form, looking mighty and imposing. By now, even when facing a practitioner at the great completion of the creation stage, little Yin would not be at a disadvantage, making it one of Lin Dong's greatest assets. Everyone stay calm. As Lin Dong summoned little Yin, several powerful auras erupted from the stone tower at the center of the city. The elite warriors of the Holy Light Dynasty flew out, hovering in midair as their commanding voices echoed in every ear. The demon tide may be strong, but as long as you follow the commands of the Holy Light Dynasty, you will survive this calamity, shouted one of the strongest, a warrior at the great completion of the creation stage, his gaze sweeping arrogantly over the city walls. With the Holy Light Dynasty in control, we will definitely withstand the demon tide, came the immediate response from those who had long pledged their allegiance to the Holy Light Dynasty, now lording over the city. Many of the strong warriors in the city felt a sense of resentment toward the Holy Light Dynasty's domineering ways, but no one dared to show it. In just a few days, the Holy Light Dynasty had established their authority here, an authority built on blood. 2 days ago, two powerful practitioners who had reached the great completion of the creation stage attempted to challenge the Holy Light Dynasty's top expert, who had stepped into the peak of the creation stage. However, the Holy Light Dynasty's expert crushed them with just one palm strike in front of the entire city. Since then, no one dared to provoke the Holy Light Dynasty again, as their strength far surpassed that of anyone else. Seeing that no one in the city dared to oppose them under their dominance, the warriors of the Holy Light Dynasty wore expressions of satisfaction. They then dispersed, each guarding a different area like commanders on a battlefield. Humph, it's that detestable guy again. Mo Ling's face darkened as he looked at a figure approaching their direction, his voice laced with disdain. Lin Dong's gaze followed, landing on a man clad in a golden robe standing atop a high tower. His face was filled with an overwhelming arrogance. Over the past few days, the Holy Light Dynasty had regarded themselves as the overlords of this place, treating everyone else as mere subordinates. Lin Dong recognized this golden-robed man as Xia Huang, a powerful expert from the Holy Light Dynasty who had also reached the great completion of the creation stage. This man possessed powerful martial arts of the creation stage, making his combat strength formidable. Ordinary practitioners at the great completion of the creation stage were no match for him, which made Xia Huang extremely arrogant. Moreover, there was a personal grudge between him and Mo Ling's group. The enmity stemmed from an incident 2 days ago when Lin Dong and his group had just settled in the city. While Man Shan was out gathering information, he couldn't stand Xia Huang's arrogance and muttered a remark that Xia Huang overheard. Enraged, Xia Huang attacked, nearly injuring Man Shan. Fortunately, Mo Ling arrived in time to stop Xia Huang, but this incident earned them the enmity of the Holy Light Dynasty's expert. Since then, Xia Huang had frequently made things difficult for them. However, due to the overwhelming strength of the Holy Light Dynasty, Mo Ling and his group had no choice but to endure. Xia Huang stood atop the stone tower, followed by a dozen or so other powerful practitioners who had aligned themselves with the Holy Light Dynasty. His gaze was also fixed outside the city, where a serious expression crossed his face. Lord Xia Huang, the scale of this demon tide is no small matter. If it breaks through, the casualties will be significant, one of the practitioners behind Xia Huang said, his face faintly pale. Brother Lin Dong. As Lin Dong stepped forward, Mo Ling and the others were momentarily stunned. Mo Ling then lowered his voice and said, "The Holy Light Dynasty is incredibly powerful. If we go head-to-head with them, it could be disastrous for us." Although Mo Ling harbored deep anger toward the Holy Light Dynasty, he understood that their strength was indeed formidable. If they clashed, his group might end up at a disadvantage. Brother Mo Ling, you've mentioned before that while it's necessary to keep a low profile on the ancient battlefield, being too low-key can bring its own troubles, Lin Dong replied calmly. Hearing this, Mo Ling let out a bitter laugh. It wasn't that he was trying to keep a low profile. With his strength, he didn't consider himself weaker than any of the Holy Light Dynasty's experts at the great completion of the creation stage. However, the Holy Light Dynasty had more than one such expert, and more importantly, they had a top-tier expert who had reached the peak of the creation stage. Mo Ling had witnessed that person in action and knew their strength was unmatched. Even he couldn't stand against them. Each of the Holy Light Dynasty's experts would be considered top-tier in the Great Yin Dynasty. The cultivation techniques, martial arts, and spiritual treasures they possessed were all extraordinarily powerful. Their combat strength far exceeded that of practitioners at the same level. This alone was enough to show that the Holy Light Dynasty's power was far superior to that of the Great Yin Dynasty. So, facing the overwhelming strength of the Holy Light Dynasty wasn't about keeping a low profile. It was simply a matter of survival. Did you just call me trash? Just as Mo Ling was lamenting, Xia Huang's expression turned sinister in an instant. He stared coldly at Lin Dong, his voice sharp. It seems you country bumpkins have grown bold. A worthless fool at the early stage of the creation stage dares to challenge the Holy Light Dynasty? Fine, I've had enough of you. This time, I'll kill you all and hang your bodies on the city walls. Let's see if anyone dares disrespect the Holy Light Dynasty after that. Seize these worthless fools from the Great Yin Dynasty, he commanded. As Xia Huang's sinister shout echoed, the dozen or so experts behind him cast malevolent glances at Lin Dong and his companions. The powerful fluctuations of yuan power began to spread as their figures flashed, forming a circle that trapped Lin Dong's group. Seeing this, Mo Ling and the others' expressions changed, and they stepped forward, their eyes filled with caution as they watched the scene unfold. Roar! However, just as an internal conflict was about to erupt, a thunderous roar suddenly rang out from outside the city. The ground trembled, and the crimson tide of demon beasts surged forward like a blood wave, sweeping toward the city. The sight of thousands of beasts charging together caused many to feel weak in the knees. The advancing demon tide also caused Xia Huang and his group's expressions to change. He glanced outside the city, then shot a sinister look at Lin Dong and said, "You're lucky today, but once we fend off this demon tide, I'll make sure you suffer a fate worse than death." With that menacing statement, Xia Huang immediately turned his attention to other matters, his voice spreading out as he directed the various forces to defend against the demon tide. Lin Dong's gaze remained cold as he watched Xia Huang's retreating figure, his eyes filled with a strong killing intent. His impression of the Holy Light Dynasty had plummeted to the lowest possible point. They were truly insufferable. "Brother Lin Dong, let's focus on repelling the demon tide first. If things get too dangerous, we should leave early," Mo Ling sighed. By now, they had completely fallen out with Xia Huang, and staying here would only bring them more trouble. Once the demon tide was over, they would have to take the opportunity to leave. Otherwise, if the Holy Light Dynasty decided to target them, it could be a deadly situation. Lin Dong offered no response to Mo Ling's suggestion. The Holy Light Dynasty was indeed strong, with one expert at the peak of the creation stage, 7 at the great completion of the creation stage, and the rest at the early stage of the creation stage. Such a lineup was undeniably formidable. However, to Lin Dong, they were not invincible. If the Holy Light Dynasty insisted on provoking him, he would not hesitate to unleash true carnage. As this thought crossed his mind, a fierce glint flashed in Lin Dong's eyes. His nature was to not provoke others unless provoked himself, but since Xia Huang had come looking for trouble, he couldn't be blamed for being ruthless. "The demon tide is here, stay alert." Mo Ling's voice rang out in Lin Dong's ear just as the savage light flickered in his eyes. Lin Dong turned his head and saw that the massive tide of demon beasts had already reached the base of the city walls. Boom, boom. As the demon beasts charged, the city walls erupted with countless powerful yuan power attacks, reducing many of the beasts to pulp. However, despite the fierce attacks from the walls, the demon tide seemed endless. In the blink of an eye, countless demon beasts slammed into the walls. The deep, resonating thuds were like heavy blows to the hearts of everyone present, causing their breaths to falter. Roar! One by one, crimson demon beasts leaped with astonishing agility, scaling the city walls and launching themselves at the defenders, their gaping maws filled with sharp, white fangs ready to tear into flesh. On the walls, some demon beasts managed to climb up, only to be quickly reduced to bloody shreds by the defenders. However, the pervasive scent of blood only served to further enrage the beasts below, intensifying their ferocity. On the section of the wall where Lin Dong and his group were stationed, demon beasts also managed to climb up, but they were swiftly slaughtered. Still, the relentless onslaught caused Lin Dong and the others to frown deeply. Bang! Lin Dong grabbed a charging demon beast with one hand, and with a surge of power, he crushed its skull. As he prepared to discard the beast's corpse, he suddenly felt a surge of energy. With a quick motion, he drew a crimson object from the beast's head. Lin Dong examined the crimson object and realized it was something akin to a demon crystal, except that it contained strands of fiery red energy. Nirvana Qi. As he sensed the fiery energy within, a look of surprise flashed in Lin Dong's eyes. No wonder these demon beasts had bodies as tough as iron. They had absorbed Nirvana Qi, making them stronger. Lin Dong held the demon crystal in his hand and with a twist of his palm, unleashed the power of devouring, absorbing all the Nirvana Qi within. The demon crystal crumbled into powder, but Lin Dong felt a slight disappointment. The amount of Nirvana Qi within was minimal, just a thin strand. However, if he could devour the Nirvana Qi from thousands of such demon crystals, the effect would be considerable. These demon beasts actually have such benefits. Having experienced the benefits of the demon crystals, Lin Dong looked up once more at the fiery red surge of demons, a spark of excitement in his eyes. Each ferocious beast appeared to him as nirvana pills rolling towards him. If he could consume all the demon crystals from these beasts, he might refine at least 1,000 nirvana pills. That was a staggering number. After all, the nirvana pills currently in Lin Dong's possession numbered only in the thousands. Consuming these demon crystals could double his collection. This method was a shortcut compared to the arduous cultivation and extraction process typically required to create these powerful pills. What a treasure! Lin Dong thought to himself. With a light tap of his foot on the city wall, he leapt down in front of the astonished onlookers. As he did, a brilliant sunburst of energy erupted from within him. Each movement of his fists and palms released explosive waves of primordial energy. Any crimson beast that ventured within a yard of him was instantly obliterated by his fierce punches, its demon crystals whistling out and swiftly swept up by Lin Dong. In moments, he absorbed and refined them, transforming them into fiery strands of nirvana energy that coursed through his limbs, further solidifying and empowering his internal primordial energy. This method of cultivating in battle was astonishingly efficient. Onlookers on the city walls observed in awe, their expressions shifting. They knew well the energy contained within these demon crystals, but none dared to plunge into the demon tide like Lin Dong. Without the power of a devouring ancestral talisman, they couldn't refine the demon crystals at such a breakneck pace, using the nirvana energy to replenish themselves amidst the relentless waves of beasts. Atop a high tower, Xia Huang watched Lin Dong's display of might with a cold glint in his eyes, murmuring, "Keep hunting those demon crystals, boy. Once the tide ebbs, you'll see that all your efforts have been for my sake." In this gathering place, the Holy Light Dynasty reigns supreme. You all are merely our alchemists, refining nirvana pills for us. As the tide of demons surged, a radiant sun rose within it, and fists shadowed with powerful forces shattered even the steel-like beasts at contact. With each blow, a burst of red light shot from the beast's flesh into Lin Dong's sleeves. Now more than ever, Lin Dong felt invigorated. Each beast he smashed felt thrillingly satisfying. As he absorbed a demon crystal, transforming it into nirvana energy within him, his internal power surged, and he felt an immense sense of exhilaration. Meanwhile, the entire city wall was engulfed in fierce combat. Faced with such a massive assault, many initially panicked, but thanks to the collective talents of warriors from various dynasties, they managed to hold their defenses robustly. Unlike beasts, these humans had the advantage of intelligence. Mo Ling and his companions defended their section of the wall. As they fought, they kept their eyes on Lin Dong, admiring his enduring strength amidst the overwhelming tide. They had to admit, Lin Dong's prowess was indeed superior. They couldn't have lasted as long in the thick of the tide without showing signs of fatigue. On one side, Lin Langtian watched the figure battling within the tide, his gaze flickering, his thoughts inscrutable. The battle raged on the walls, and as more warriors grew accustomed to the fight and realized the benefits of the nirvana energy within the demon crystals, some began to boldly venture down from the walls. However, unlike Lin Dong, they stayed close to the wall, slaying beasts and seizing their crystals. As the tide's onslaught gradually slowed, relief washed over many, suggesting they might just withstand it after all. This demon tide's assault is nothing special after all. As intense battles erupted all around the city walls, several figures stood proudly atop the central stone tower, their gazes sweeping over the city like sovereigns. Upon seeing the demon tide being held at bay, one of them couldn't help but scoff disdainfully. Atop the tower stood 8 figures, among them Xia Huang, who had previously clashed with Lin Dong and his companions. Evidently, they were all powerful members of the Holy Light Dynasty. At the center of the group stood a man in a blue robe, handsome yet with lips as sharp as a blade's edge, indicating that he was no easy opponent. This man, standing at the forefront and even commanding the formidable Xia Huang to stand obediently behind him, was clearly the peak master of the creation stage among this assembly. Now, The beasts attacking from the tide are merely at the Qi creation stage. The man in the blue robe remarked as he glanced at the demon surge outside the walls. Wait a bit longer, and we might see beasts of the creation stage emerge, and I can even sense a presence in the tide that rivals the peak of the creation stage. Beasts at the peak of the creation stage are nothing to worry about, chuckled a man behind the blue-robed figure. With Brother Li's strength, unless facing a being almost at the Nirvana stage, no one could possibly be his match. Indeed, Brother Li is a once-in-a-century genius of our Holy Light dynasty. Few below the Nirvana stage can stand against him. Should any such beast dare to appear, he'll simply strike it down and take its demon crystal. Given the immense Nirvana energy contained within such powerful beasts' crystals, with Brother Li's power, it won't be long before he breaks through to the Nirvana stage. Then we can delve into the ancient battlefield, where the Nirvana energy between heaven and earth is much denser than here. Cultivating there, the speed will be unmatched. Hearing the flattering and sycophantic tones of his followers, the man in the blue robe smiled faintly, playing with a jade ring on his finger, his face bearing an undisguisable pride. Here, at this gathering point, he was the ruler because his strength was supreme. Just as they discussed atop the stone tower, a series of ferocious roars erupted from the demon tide. Soon, everyone saw massive crimson beasts, each emanating an aura as strong as a creation stage master, thundering toward the city walls with earth-shaking steps. The warriors below, who had been easily slaying lesser demons, quickly retreated to the city walls. They could handle other beasts easily, but against those at their own stage, caution was necessary. These sudden appearances of creation stage beasts also caught Lin Dong's attention, but far from showing fear, his eyes lit up with excitement. Perfect timing. I'll use your power to achieve great completion of the creation stage. Power surged around Lin Dong, and with a grasp, the sky crocodile bone spear appeared in his hand, its fierce aura sweeping forth. Lin Dong, holding the bone spear, charged directly at the group of creation stage beasts. In midair, his spear danced, casting spear shadows that rained down from the sky onto the giant beasts. These creation stage beasts, though physically tougher than any before, were vulnerable under the might of Lin Dong's heavenly scaled bone spear, crumbling like tofu. Wherever the spear passed, blood sprayed, and beast after beast was effortlessly pierced through by the spear and then collapsed. It was a slaughterhouse scene. As Lin Dong moved through, his spear swept up sprays of blood with each strike. Continuous streams of Nirvana energy-laden demon crystals were drawn into his palm and instantly absorbed and refined. Under this rapid consumption, Lin Dong's internal energy swelled, and his aura climbed steadily, even showing signs of nearing great completion of the creation stage. Above on the city walls, the onlookers were stunned by the unstoppable figure amidst the demon tide, wielding such power freely among the creation stage beasts, an achievement none of them could match. What a splendid earth-tier spiritual treasure! The commotion was tremendous, drawing the attention of the figures atop the stone tower. The leader in the blue robe paused the twirling of his ring and looked intently at Lin Dong's sky crocodile bone spear, commenting slowly, that boy is merely at the minor completion of the creation stage. His ferocity is entirely due to that earth-tier spiritual treasure in his hands. Brotherly, such a treasure truly requires your power to unleash its full potential. This country bumpkin is unworthy of it, Xia Huang said darkly, then continued. It seems like that boy is about to break through to the great completion of the creation stage. Another exclaimed in surprise. Great completion of the creation stage poses no challenge against me, the blue-robed man replied with a faint smile, then casually added, once this demon tide is over, have him come to see me. I'm quite interested in his bone spear. If he dedicates the spiritual treasure to me, I'll ensure his safety in the ancient battlefield. Yes. Xia Huang quickly agreed, casting a cold sneer towards Lin Dong, who was rampaging through the demon tide. Such a fool, to reveal such a treasure openly. He clearly doesn't know the meaning of death. With a hiss, the bone spear moved like a striking snake, its indescribable sharpness piercing through two creation stage beasts with ease. Their formidable physical defenses offered no resistance under the spear, showcasing its ferocity, a tool without which Lin Dong would have found it impossible to slaughter creation stage beasts as if they were mere chickens. Having killed the two creation stage beasts, Lin Dong's aura surged to its peak, with primordial energy visibly boiling in his eyes. He could feel that he was just a step away from breaking through to the great completion of the creation stage. Roar! Just as Lin Dong was reveling in his joy, a thunderous roar burst forth from the depths of the demon tide. A massive beast slowly emerged, its appearance sending waves of terror and causing many faces to blanch. This leader-level beast at the peak of the creation stage transformed into a black lightning bolt, charging directly at Lin Dong, evidently incited by his extensive slaughter of the beasts. A beast at the peak of the creation stage. Many gasped in awe at the sight of the colossal creature, surprised by such a formidable presence within the demon tide. That kid is in trouble now. At the same time, some couldn't help but feel sympathy for Lin Dong, still deep within the demon tide. Did he really think collecting demon crystals would be easy? Now he's paying the price. A beast at the peak of the creation stage. Lin Dong speared another beast, looking towards the huge creature charging at him. However, instead of panic, his eyes sparkled with intense delight. He knew that if he could claim the demon crystal from this peak creation stage beast, he could break through the barriers and achieve great completion of the creation stage in an instant. The huge beast, its body red as blood and shaking the ground with each step, charged at Lin Dong with a ferocious aura. The earth itself trembled under the impact of its charge. As the gigantic beast neared, Lin Dong could clearly see its form. A massive demonic scorpion, its body covered in a layer of crimson armor, seemingly indestructible. Moreover, its pincers, which seemed to tear the air apart as they moved, carried a faint stench of blood, evidently venomous. Earth Demon Scorpion. Watching the formidable Earth Demon Scorpion, Lin Dong's eyes flashed with surprise, recognizing its origin. Although it wasn't a rare ancient species, it was far superior to ordinary demonic beasts, mainly because it was just a step away from reaching the Nirvana stage, which would grant it significant intelligence and possibly even allow it to transcend its beastly form. With a hiss, the potent blood aura enveloped the Earth Demon Scorpion, spreading a thick scent of blood around. Its crimson eyes, filled with violence and cruelty, danced as its pincers moved, effortlessly tearing nearby lesser beasts into a rain of blood, displaying its formidable nature. At that moment, Lin Dong halted, holding his sky crocodile bone spear tightly, his gaze locked on the Earth Demon Scorpion as it approached with an overwhelming oppressive aura. This was his first encounter with such a powerful beast. Compared to the ancient dragon ape he had faced in the Great Wilderness County, this Earth Demon Scorpion was on a completely different level. Just a step away from the Nirvana stage, this level of power was immensely close to transcending into a completely new realm of strength. As Lin Dong stood ready with his spear, the Earth Demon Scorpion charged at him, its pincers capable of slicing through mountains, swinging fiercely towards him. The force behind its strike was so great that a direct hit would certainly injure even someone as tough as Lin Dong. Clang! Facing this Earth Demon Scorpion, which was comparable to a peak creation stage fighter, Lin Dong did not underestimate his opponent. Instantly, he moved with the Tai Ching heavenly steps, transforming into a trail of smoke that dodged the scorpion's pincers. Following that, his bone spear vibrated, casting a shadow that struck swiftly like lightning at the pincers. When spear and pincer met, a crisp clanging sound erupted with sparks flying, and a visible wave of force spread out, slicing through several nearby beasts. In this direct clash, Lin Dong was forcefully pushed back several steps. The Earth Demon Scorpion's strength was not only on par with the peak of the creation stage, but its sheer physical power was also formidable, momentarily giving Lin Dong a tough challenge. Ha! Worthy of a beast at the peak of the creation stage. However, this setback only fueled Lin Dong's fervor even more. He stepped forward, his body's primordial energy boiling at this moment, immensely robust and eager for a fierce battle to facilitate his breakthrough. Lin Dong's figure shot out again like a cannonball, stepping on air with mysterious movements. His sky crocodile bone spear danced, casting a myriad of spear shadows like a torrential downpour onto the earth demon scorpion. At this moment, this battle within the demon tide undoubtedly became the focal point of all onlookers. When they saw Lin Dong being pushed back by the earth demon scorpion, they couldn't help but shake their heads, recognizing that a beast at the peak of the creation stage was not something he could easily withstand. Ha, clueless fool, daring to challenge a beast at the peak of the creation stage? Xia Huang scoffed coldly from the stone tower. It doesn't matter if he dies, but we can't let that earth-tier spiritual treasure be destroyed. Once he and the beast are both weakened, I'll step in, slay the beast, collect its demon crystal, and take that bone spear for myself, the man in the blue robe commented indifferently. Haha, it seems Brotherly wants to play the role of a king for once. But this might make those bumpkins from the great Yin dynasty restless, Xia Huang said with a laugh upon hearing the plan. If they can't bear it, then kill them all. A dynasty as insignificant as ants coming here is just embarrassing. The man in the blue robe said indifferently, toying with his ring, his words filled with disdain. As they conversed, the battle within the demon tide grew even more fierce. Lin Dong's body roared with primordial energy, and relying on his formidable physical strength, he didn't collapse as quickly as some had expected. Clang, clang, clang. A flurry of spear shadows fell upon the earth demon scorpion, sparking a shower of sparks. The scorpion's carapace, capable of defending against attacks from peak creation stage warriors, was nevertheless marred by the incisive strikes of Lin Dong's sky crocodile bone spear. The pain that coursed through its body made the earth demon scorpion roar furiously. Opening its ferocious maw, it spat a stench-filled, blood-colored energy directly at Lin Dong. Purple Shadow 9 breaks. Facing the earth demon scorpion's desperate counterattack, Lin Dong stepped rapidly, producing 9 afterimages that appeared like lightning behind him. His gaze then turned sharp, and with a thrust of his sky crocodile bone spear, he executed the strike. The spear moved, and even the space itself vibrated, creating ripples of force. Lin Dong had perfected the Purple Shadow 9 breaks to such an extent that it could be applied not only to his boxing techniques, but also to his spear techniques. Wrapped in tremendous primordial energy, the spear fearlessly collided with the blood light, and the fierce wind burst forth in an instant, tearing the blood light apart. Great wilderness prison sky finger, one finger imprisons the heavens and earth. After tearing through the blood light, suddenly an ancient giant finger appeared out of nowhere, then with overwhelming pressure, it shot down from the sky like lightning, striking hard on the body of the earth demon scorpion below. Boom! This attack was ferociously powerful, causing even the large body of the earth demon scorpion to be forced back dozens of meters. The wind from the impact exploded outward, blasting some unfortunate beasts nearby to pieces. Creation-level martial arts. Lin Dong's move immediately drew exclamations from those on the city walls. He really is an unexpected fellow. His creation-level martial arts must have reached the intermediate level. To think that someone from a small dynasty possesses such a formidable earth-tier spiritual treasure and creation-level martial arts, it's truly surprising. The man in the blue robe commented, slightly taken aback, then said with interest, "Intermediate creation-level martial arts?" Hearing this, Xia Huang's eyes flashed with greed, murmuring, "Hey, Brotherly. Although you also possess intermediate creation-level martial arts, having one more could enhance your combat power even further. This man cannot be overlooked. What I desire naturally becomes mine," the man in the blue robe said with a light smile, already considering the sky crocodile bone spear and the great wilderness prison sky finger as his own. While speaking, his eyes narrowed slightly as he watched the battle within the demon tide. There was a hint of surprise in his gaze, but more prevalent was a faint, cold smirk. That beast seems to be showing signs of fatigue. This kid has some skills, but such a level of demon crystal is beyond what someone from his minor dynasty deserves to enjoy. In the midst of the demon tide, the earth demon scorpion finally slowed its retreat. In front of it, a long trench had formed, and its head, protected by an extremely hard carapace, now bore several cracks, clearly inflicted by Lin Dong's ferocious strike earlier. Enraged by the damage Lin Dong had inflicted, the Earth Demon Scorpion's eyes flickered with ferocity and violence, as if it wanted to crush Lin Dong to pieces. However, Lin Dong paid no mind to its furious, crimson gaze. His form turned into a blur as he dashed past, his body's primordial energy nearly boiling over, a sign he was on the verge of breakthrough. He urgently needed the creation stage peak demon crystal to complete this final step and fully ascend to the great completion of the creation stage. Die! Lin Dong appeared above the Earth Demon Scorpion, his mind focused, and his surging spiritual power gathered on the bone spear, forming a vortex-like force that unleashed a violent suction. Then, with a whooshing sound of the wind being torn, the spear thrust down lightning fast towards the cracked area of the scorpion's head. This spear strike, if landed, would instantly allow the violent spiritual force to invade the Earth Demon Scorpion's body, shattering its intellect. However, just as Lin Dong's bone spear was about to strike the Earth Demon Scorpion's wounded spot, an extremely fierce gust of wind suddenly appeared from behind him, and a faint voice drifted into his ears. "Are you Lin Dong? You've contributed a lot in defending the city, and I'll reward you for that. But let me handle this beast now." Hearing this voice, a cold and stern expression immediately surfaced in Lin Dong's eyes.